Guys, we'll be starting in 2 minutes. Thanks for. Hi everyone. Is the screen visible now? If you can just give in the reactions a thumbs up. Great, great. So, without further ado, let's begin. Okay. Yeah. So, welcome all of you to Letcon for joining us and for bearing with us with this technical glitch. We have, like, the time has been delayed by 30 minutes, but no worries. We can, extend it a bit. So, moving on, I'll just brief you with the general structure of Letcon. So, it is distributed across a period of 3 days, that is 20, 21st, and 22nd August. And within these 3 days, we are covering 5 different technologies. So these technologies are blockchain, quantum computing, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and augmented reality. So it don't depend in which technology you are interested in. You will get something that will excite you, and we have some really amazing speakers that we'll see as we move on. So this conference will consist of various talks, workshops, panel discussions, and especially loads of networking. So you have already seen a glimpse of it during the time during 3 to 4:30 p.m. that you were sitting on virtual tables. And so what I observed was that mostly people were not interacting. So what if I were to give my 2 cents? So I'll recommend you that interact with more and more people, because as the more you interact, the more you open up, and the more you'll see the benefits of networking. So whenever we have a networking session that we'll have at the end of today's like all of the sessions, so just try to interact with other people, try to know them. That would be like really helpful for you in the future. So first, I'll just like to thank our sponsors and outreach partners. So Letcon is powered by Zinfin Hybrid Blockchain Network and is supported by WazirX, FullHash, and Blockstack. We would also like to thank our outreach partners like Machine Learning India, Coding Blocks, Accelero, and others. So and also we have like many others outreach partners that you can see that who have really helped us in taking this conference forward. So I'll just walk you through the day one agenda of Letcon so that you have a brief idea about it. Also, you can check it out on the website. The entire agenda is updated there on letcon.zubi.io. So these are the 5 amazing industry stalwarts that we are having today. So they'll be talking about different topics, mostly on AI and blockchain today. So people who are looking to enter into these technologies, or who want to get more insight about how things are actually going on in the industry and what's the future of these technologies, feel free to check these out, and I'll recommend to interact with the speakers. Again, interaction is the key in conferences, so just I'm saying that in bold, just mark it. Then talking about the agenda, so for today we like the opening ceremony which is currently going on. It's quite extended from 4:15. But anyways, then after this we'll have Mr. Dilip Kumar, who will talk about how AI is actually impacting the society, what is its future, how people are actually implementing it, and as against the movies that we see on AI that robots are taking over the world, and also we'll talk about how exactly in the present scenario how it is making an impact. Then we have Mr. Danko Nikolic, who will be talking about the opportunities in this era where AI systems are actually replacing humans. So yes, that has become the present. It is not a future anymore, wherein AI is replacing humans at various places. So he'll shed more light on these topics. Then we have a workshop with Matic Network. Yes, workshop. So for developers, workshops play a very important role because it actually helps them to do hands-on things. So I'll just recommend you to absolutely not miss these two workshops today. If you are interested in blockchain, and if you are not even interested in blockchain, then believe me, you will be, because it's an amazing technology. So first we have Mr. Ayush Gupta and Mr. Arjun Kalsi from Matic Network, who will talk and give a hands-on building decentralized applications and smart contracts on Matic Network. And then we have Joseph Bender from Blockstack, who will be talking about Clarity, which is their smart contract language, and the Blockstack ecosystem. We'll be diving deeper into that. Then there will be the much awaited networking session, which I have been talking about again and again. So you must focus on this. This is the key, if you believe me. If I were to tell you from my experience, then networking is really important. Then yes, so we have prizes of worth 5,000, 50,000. My apologies. So you will get a chance to earn all these prizes by just participating in this conference and other various things that will be aligned with it. So I'm briefing you about them. So the first thing is you have to engage during the conference sessions. I mean, you don't have to, but that's what I'll suggest you to do. So engage during the conference sessions with your other peers, with the speakers, and ask some good quality questions, or maybe help others to clear their doubts. So all these things, we'll be taking a note of these things, and we'll be giving prizes worth INR 3,000 in each session. So currently we have around 14 sessions. So in each session you have prizes of 3,000. So that means 42,000 in total. So you have a great opportunity if you just engage in the conference sessions. Then the second category is of sharing about Letcon on your social media. So just you can share on Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn, and use the hashtag ZubiLetcon and tag us, and you'll get a chance to win 5,000 INR. So in this also we have different categories. So we have most engagements, like if your tweet or if your post gets the most engagements, then we'll give the prizes to those people. You can come up with something innovative, or you can share a screenshot of maybe the workshop or any other talks that you are attending, or maybe your setup that you have at your home. You can post that. So that can come in different categories, like most innovative and most insightful. So total we have prizes of 5,000 for this. Then we'll be having, as you all know, certificates. So for certificates, you'll be attending workshop assessments. For each workshop, we'll be walking you through that. So for workshops, you have assessments, and after giving the assessments, the top winners will get some prizes. Also, since AirMeet is a bandwidth heavy software platform that we all have experienced just now, literally. So if you guys are facing any problem in AirMeet, so you can join the video on YouTube. We are also streaming there. So you can easily watch the videos there. The only thing is you will not be able to interact one-on-one with the speakers or with other people. So that's the issue with YouTube. And the videos will be there till eternity. So after this, you can watch it anytime on YouTube. Okay, so I'll just give you a rough idea of AirMeet, although I believe that you guys had sufficient time to check it out. So it has various different features, like you can raise your hand, you can the speaker can create polls, and you can participate in those polls, live polls. Then you can do chat. For questions, I'd request you to please don't put it in chat, because that will get mixed. So if you have any questions with the speakers, just put it in the Q&A window, and it will be better that way. And you can give reactions as you all have been giving all this long time. So I think you all know about the platform more or less, and we all have explored the virtual networking session. That's the best part of AirMeet. That's why we have compromised on the bandwidth, because like if we are doing a conference, then networking is must. Then certificates. A lot of you have this issue, so I thought that let's cover it in the opening ceremony. So certificates, yes, you'll get you have the chance to get 4 different certificates from this conference only. One is of Letcon, which is a general certificate of attending Letcon. If you have registered on AirMeet and have attended any of the sessions, then you will get the certificate. Okay, don't worry if you are not able to continue watching it on AirMeet, you can switch to YouTube. Once you have registered here, you'll get the certificate. Then for workshops, we have 3 different certificates. One is of blockchain. Okay, so today we have 2 workshops. So the blockchain quiz will be combined in like for those 2 workshops. There will be a combined quiz which you can give and you can earn the certificate. And then we have AR/VR workshop tomorrow, and then ML workshop day after that, which you can give, and you can after attending those workshops, you can give the quiz and you can earn the certificates. Now there is a thing that you need to remember: the quiz are not gonna come up immediately. Okay, so we will be giving you the steps and the process of giving the quiz and earning the certificates in the closing ceremony of the conference. So on 22nd, in the closing ceremony, we will walk you through the entire process of giving the quiz and claiming the certificates. Till then, just enjoy the conference, attend the workshops, pin down, note down the important things so that they don't bounce off your mind when you have to give the quiz 2 or 3 days after that. So, and also you can always come back to the YouTube video and watch it. So this was one thing. Then if you have not yet joined the Zubi Telegram community, then I'll just recommend you highly that join it, because it's we are building the India's largest emerging tech ecosystem there, and you can ask all your queries and share resources, engage with other people. Just go and search Zubi_IO on Telegram, either on your laptop, desktop, or on mobile, and we'll be there to help you. Okay, so let's get started with Letcon. So the first speaker that we have with us is Mr. Hari Dilip Kumar. So I will just be ending this particular session, and you can join us on the new session of the impact of artificial intelligence in society. And Hari is waiting for us there. We can begin in next 5 minutes. Meanwhile, we are setting up. If you want, you can just use this time to network amongst yourselves. Thanks a lot, guys.
So it still says connecting.
Yeah, yes, it takes a while. It will be
Okay.
done soon.
I hope the audience is not getting like restless or something.
Hello.
So is it waiting for the audience to the join, or is it waiting for something else? Oops, lost connection. Hello.
Hi Hari, I think we are live now.
All
So
right. Great.
yeah, we are live now.
Okay. Good. So good to hear. So do I switch on video?
Yeah, you can. I mean, it's totally up to you. You can just
All right.
share your slides
Cool. So
and
I'm
it
going to
will
be
be
sharing.
visible here.
I'm already sharing, right?
Yes, you are sharing. Just switch there. Yes, it's visible now.
Okay. 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 So I'm going to start, and I'm going to assume that everything is fine. So first of all, just hang on. So okay. So first of all, apologies for the glitches, everyone. I guess this is just technology, emerging technology, and it's some of the problems with that. And I'd like to say thank you to Zubi and thank you to for inviting me to this event to talk about this very important topic. I mean, I love technology and I think a lot about technology, and I'm also really happy that there are lots of students and young professionals over here. So many of the issues which we're going to be discussing in this talk are things which you might think about or should think about or which might affect you. So let's get into the talk. I'm going to be talking about the impact of artificial intelligence on society. So before we jump in, I'd like to say a few things. The first is I don't claim to have any answers, and I'm not going to give you any answers, but I am going to ask certain questions and hopefully nudge the discussion in the direction of questions and better questions. The second thing is I'm not going to give you too many opinions, but I am going to point you in the direction of evidence. Um, so so whatever I say is probably going to be grounded in research and so on and so forth. I'm also not going to try to be exhaustive. I'm just going to give you examples, and I encourage you to apply the principles which I share with you and look for examples of your own. And finally, what I want you to take away from this talk, hopefully, is you should have an understanding of the issues which are at stake when something like artificial intelligence is released into society. The second thing which you should understand is like hopefully you will have a frame or a framework to think about how AI impacts society. And finally, where do you look if you want more information? So without any further ado, let's get into it. So let's start right at the beginning. What do we mean by artificial intelligence? So I'm not going to give you a very theoretical and kind of textbook definition because it's just not possible. But instead, we'll talk about the different kinds of programs or software which might qualify as AI. So you have programs which do perception, basically sensing. They could be sensing text, they could be sensing audio, or they could be doing face recognition. So that's one kind of artificial intelligence. You could be having software which does decision making. So this is software which looks at images of lungs and figures out if somebody has lung cancer. So that's another kind of artificial intelligence. This used to be done by human beings only, but now software is starting to do it. You could have software or programs or algorithms which allow you to predict. So this is a system from IBM's subsidiary called the Weather Company, which allows you to predict using the supercomputer what the weather is going to be. So that's another kind of task which AI can do. And you could also have knowledge extraction or pattern recognition. So if you had a program, for example, which could look at news articles and figure out if it's fake or not, right? Like by looking at patterns of words and comparing it with other articles, then that's one kind of task which AI does. And this is a very interesting one. This, chatbots and social robots. You can see Sophia, who is a humanoid robot who can hold a pretty good conversation. This particular task of artificial intelligence is pretty interesting because the pioneer of computer science, Alan Turing, who dreamed of computers when there were no actual physical computers possible, came up with something called the Turing test, where he said that a computer has true artificial intelligence if it can fool a human who is chatting with it, through a typewriter or through a terminal, that it's a human being. So he thought the Turing test would be passed by 2000, but it's 2020 now, and we still haven't got true artificial intelligence in the Turing test sense. So finally, we have a very advanced kind of artificial intelligence which develops its own theories, and this is just an example where the software simulates the evolution of galaxies of different types and sees which physical laws are most feasible inside these simulations. So this is another kind of artificial intelligence, basically replacing the functions of a scientist. So now that we know what artificial intelligence is, we need to ask ourselves, why do we need to consider the impact of AI on society? And so, I mean, we could look at popular culture where we have killer robots. These are the Daleks from Doctor Who. This is the Terminator out to terminate all of us. And of course, you can't escape the Matrix with its unfriendly Agent Smith's clones. And if we ask what the principle should be, there is something called a precautionary principle. So moving away from movies and fiction, the precautionary principle basically says that if we have any new policy, any new technology, then even if there's not proof completely that it's going to cause some bad effects, we have to be careful, we have to be safe, we have to proceed with caution, and it's like, do no harm, think critically. Now, not everybody agrees with this, but it's pretty interesting that way back in 1940, when Isaac Asimov, who is like one of the greatest science fiction writers of all time, he basically came up with 3 laws of robotics, which obviously came from the consideration of a robot must not harm a human. It's very interesting that like even before there was artificial intelligence, they were considering these laws. So now that we've understood why we have to consider the impact of AI on society, let's think of what do we mean by society. So I'd like you to think of this quote from another great science fiction writer called William Gibson, who coincidentally is the person who like introduced the term cyberspace. And he says the future is already here. It's not just very evenly distributed. So it could be interpreted in many ways, but I want you to keep it in mind. And if we're going to talk about the impact of artificial intelligence on society, we have to ask 2 questions, like, where are we as society and where do we want to go as society? And we have a framework for this. The framework is called the Sustainable Development Goals. And on your screen you can see 17 different goals in different colors. And these were created by the United Nations. And they had a long so this is basically the current agenda for development in the world. And the way it was created was, after 2015, the previous development framework was upgraded, and they took into account like surveys of like more than 1 million people across different countries, saying, what is it that you want? And they put it together and they synthesized it, and they said, this is the future we want. And if you want to understand the Sustainable Development Goals, I mean, this is basically the framework which everybody uses in order to discuss how to make the world a better place, right? And let's unpack it a little bit. So first of all, these goals are interrelated. So you can see that there's something saying affordable and clean energy, but it might have something to do with climate action, or it might have something to do with decent work as well. There are positive and negative interlinkages. For example, if you had if you had more industry, then would you have more inequality or less inequality? But so they might compete with each other as well. They're also aspirational in the sense that they tell you which direction to go in, but they don't tell you how, and they're based on data. So the key themes in the SDGs or the Sustainable Development Goals are, we don't want poverty, eradicate extreme poverty, eradicate poverty, but also climate change, which I think everybody, especially young people, should be extremely concerned about, and sustainability issues, including energy, water, so on and so forth. So this is the agenda. This is the framework in which we'll be thinking. So how does it actually look inside? So if you open the sustainable development goals, you'll find that there are actual targets written out. So it says by 2030, eradicate extreme poverty for all people everywhere. And it not only gives you a target like this, but it tells you how to measure whether you're getting there or not. So it's saying how many people in your country are below the poverty line, international poverty line, how many people in the country are below the national poverty line, and it does this for all the different goals here. So there are 17 goals, but there are 169 targets inside those goals. And here is one more for energy, for example, unpacked for energy. And you know here it says everybody should have access to affordable, reliable, and modern energy services. This includes people in villages, who right now are using biomass and firewood, so on and so forth. So this is how you measure it. All right. So that's about the SDGs in terms of what they look like. The principle to remember is that in order to get to these goals and to create a better society for ourselves and for the world, and to take the world in a positive direction, there are, it's a three-dimensional problem at least. You can't make it a one-dimensional problem and just optimize, for example, for the most money or something like this. You have to include all three. You need to include the social, you need to include the environmental, and you need to include the economic. And we should keep this in mind. So when we say the impact of artificial intelligence on society, right, we can't anymore think of just the social. We also have to think of the economic and the environmental. So let's ask ourselves this question: how can artificial intelligence help or hinder the sustainable development goals? This is actually a really, really interesting question, and it turns out that somebody's actually studied this, and I'm basing this part of the discussion on this brilliant paper which was published in Nature Communications, called "The Role of Artificial Intelligence in Achieving the Sustainable Development Goals." And you might be wondering, like, who are these people who are trying to connect, the progress of our society to the role of artificial intelligence? Like, what are the qualifications? And you find that these people are from ecology, from machine learning, from robotics, from aerospace engineering, and finally there's one of them, Max Tegmark, who is a top cosmologist at MIT, who also coincidentally believes that the whole universe is made out of mathematics, believe it or not. But he is a top scientist, and they are all top scientists who have done this paper. So what have they concluded? So what they did was they basically broke up all the 17 SDGs into 3 sections, and they said there's one section for society, there's one section for the economy, and there's one section for the environment. Of course, you could also put energy inside environment, but affordable and clean energy means that it's more related to society, for example. So they first started by classifying the sustainable development goals. And what they did was they analyzed these 3 categories, and they looked at the positive and negative impacts in a way. I'll tell you how they did it as well. But uh, just look at these numbers. So this basically says that AI has 82% positive impact on society and 38% negative impact. You can ignore everything in brackets. That's just when they used a different technique to get a more accurate answer. So just look at everything outside the brackets. And what it says is, environment has AI has a 93% positive impact and a 30% negative impact. Economy, AI has a 70% positive impact and a 33% negative impact. You can also go inside one of the SDGs. For example, let's take SDG 4, right? SDG 4 is quality education. And it says that AI has a 100% positive impact and a 70% negative impact. So that raises the question: how can you have both positive and negative impacts on an SDG or on a theme like society? And why don't they add to 100%, right? And if you look at this, you'll understand if you actually see how did they do it. So this is the society theme, and these are the different sustainable development goals which have been sort of put under this theme. And these are the different targets. So remember, right at the beginning, we looked at no poverty, and we looked at energy, and we looked at the targets inside, right? So they've taken each of the targets. Some of the targets are called A and B. And what they did basically was they did a proper literature survey. So these are top scientists, but they read everything, all the papers, and wherever there were like credible papers which said that AI will enable a particular target, then they colored it green. If they found another credible paper which said AI will inhibit a particular target, they colored it red. So from that way of looking at it, you can have AI which enables something and disables it through another way. And we'll see some of these examples as we go along. But this was a methodology which they used, and they did this both for society as well as economy and environment to come to these conclusions. Now, I'm not going to go in detail to each and every single conclusion, but uh, what you should do is look at this paper, and if you want to make progress in zero hunger, for example, and end food insecurity, then you can see what are the green things. You can go into those papers, you can look at how they did it, you can try implementing those in wherever you are, whether you're from India or some other country, whatever problem appeals to you. All right, but it's all laid out over here. So let's just get into them one by one a little bit and see what we find. So this is let's talk about AI and society and as an enabler. So basically, this is a map of the Earth from space in the night, and what this is showing is like the basically how the cities and the night sky is lit up uh, by cities and so on and so forth. And uh, the application is where you use this kind of satellite data, and you use machine learning, in particular use neural networks with transfer learning, in order to tell you where is there poverty. And you're taking advantage of uh, you know one of the features of poverty, which is that low access to energy is directly correlated to lack of socioeconomic development. So you can see that although there might be a lot of people living in Africa, by human development metrics, it might be like low in development and in terms of how people use energy. So this kind of map and this kind of model based on these maps is really useful, because we live in a world, especially now, where there are very few and very scarce resources, and they have to be sent to the right places. So how do we know whether to send it to one part or the other of India, or one country or the other? How do we prioritize? And this model allows us to prioritize on the basis of data. So this is an enabler. So it reduces inequalities, it reduces poverty. That's AI enabling. But you can also see that AI is an inhibitor of zero poverty, because, for example, suppose the jobs in the next 20 years become like primarily AI based in terms of required skill set. It might be great for people who know those things and can do those things, but what about the people who never got that education, right? What happens when AI arrives in a society like India, for example, where people definitely don't have algorithmic or data literacies? Won't they be left behind? So won't you have these increased inequalities? Another place where AI might actually set society back is because if you build models, so this is a man and a woman. Obviously, the picture speaks for itself. It really is much more difficult for women to climb career ladders and so on and so forth, because of so many different reasons. The point which is being made here is that if you build models which are based on commonly available data, because of the biases which are inherent in our culture, those data sets might underrepresent women, for example. And if those data sets then build models which are used for decision making, those decisions might be taken in such a way that these biases which were there in the original data sets are reinforced. And to understand what I'm trying to say in a more concrete sense, just go to Google Images and search for cricket, for example. Count how many men, count how many women are there. And then search for something else like baking or something. Count how many men, count how many women. It's not that Google Images will be biased against men or women for these things. It's just that our culture is biased, and we should not create AI models which derive from this bias and perpetuate it. Okay, so that's that. Let's get to economy now. This is super interesting. We can see that we have 70% of targets getting enabled, 33% of them getting disabled by or inhibited by artificial intelligence. Let's zoom in and take a closer look. Again, I invite you to go to this paper, and especially if you're entrepreneurial and want to implement solutions and can see problems around you. This will show you what solutions you can try to implement. So you can learn the stuff which you need through the conference on how to do it, and then you can find the right problem to solve by looking at this paper and seeing what will work, and then you can just read it and you can make a proof of concept, etc. So let's get to the how does AI enable. So the concept which I'm unpacking over here is the concept of a circular economy. You might have heard this term, but it basically means that the way in which manufacturing works and the way in which industries work and the way in which companies work and businesses work, instead of working in straight lines, they start working in circles. And you might be thinking, what a crazy idea. Like, how does businesses work in circles and so on and so forth? The idea is that in nature, like in a forest or something, nothing goes to waste. If a tree manufactures a leaf, at the end of life cycle of the leaf falls on the ground and then becomes raw material for a new process, right, to enrich the soil. So some people have thought, why can't you use the same approach in industries where you have circles happening, and the waste or exit materials of one circle or one circular value chain could enter another circular value chain and do something else. This is an amazing idea, and you can look up the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, for example, to see more about it. But you have these different business models which are enabled by it, and a practical example is the basically a sharing model. This is a company called Gogoro, and it's based in Taiwan, and they have successfully cracked the problem of converting people to electric scooters. There are hundreds of thousands of these, if not millions. And the way they work is they get rid of the battery charging time by just allowing you to swap these batteries. And it's actually data and algorithms which look at demand and figure out where to place these charging stations, for example. And once these batteries are used, they can actually be uh, once their first life cycle is used, they can go into a different life cycle for a different industry, for example, for something else. So this is really very exciting stuff, and it's enabled by the technologies of Internet of Things, and of course data science, and so on and so forth. So Industry 4.0. So that's that. So and this is a very rich concept. So do go into it in more detail if you're interested in building businesses using AI. So how does AI inhibit the economy? So how does it act against the interests of the economy? So one way might be, let's say that I'm getting job ads through LinkedIn or Facebook or some other platform. And let's say those job ads are based on a model of my skills and what the industry needs. If that model, just like the previous models which we discussed, if that model is biased in some way, then the targeted job ads might be discriminatory. And this is again a question of when you build the models, examine them explicitly for the biases which might be present, because you could have a model which was built in the global north, somewhere in the US or UK, which is driving like jobs here in India, for example. So if it's not very well built, then it might actually lead to you're seeing less opportunities than somebody else. Okay, so let's get to environment finally. And there are only three in this. The most important problem of our time, I think, which is the world is getting warmer because of the carbon dioxide which is released by our energy systems. And like energy systems means, I mean, obviously vehicles on the road and the coal burning plants and so on and so forth. And the world becoming warmer is leading to all kinds of effects, including acidification of oceans, but also other things like for example, agriculture doesn't become viable anymore, and poor farmers, because of the change in temperature and rainfall of climate action, are forced to leave their homelands, and they come and they become migrants in our cities like Bangalore and Chennai, and so on and so forth. So this is a huge problem for us. India is the fifth most vulnerable country to climate action and climate change in the world. So we have to be thinking about this. So let's see where AI helps us and where AI hinders us. And AI obviously helps us build better climate models to understand how climate change is happening, and it's pretty amazing. This is a screenshot from an actual climate model. The way in which climate change is predicted right now is by using about 20 different models by like an international organization called the IPCC, and then they compare results across the models, and they use that in order to predict how bad or good things are going to be in the future. So we can literally look into the future using these predictive models. The big problem with these models so far has been is that they have only pixel resolution, but they don't understand how clouds work because that's subpixel, and they don't understand the dynamics of clouds, even though they are amazing at doing at a higher scale than that. So what some people have tried doing is actually building in deep learning and neural nets to the actual code which is at the cloud level. So can they learn something which allows them to run the simulations much faster based on insights which the models develop. An example where AI inhibits progress on environmental sustainability is, it takes a lot of energy for this stuff to work. So, Bitcoin itself, the way people mine it, it has a huge energy cost because of. I think probably the Bitcoin people could tell you better, but I believe in order to generate the numbers which you need in order to keep things cryptographically secure for Bitcoin, it takes a lot of energy. This wouldn't be a problem if everything was running off of solar and so on and so forth. But for that you need like a clean energy mix, and right now we do not have a clean energy mix. For example, the city in which I live, which is Bangalore, has an energy mix of about 65% clean energy and 35% is non-clean energy like coal and so on and so forth. So one such solution is to use more clean energy in the mix when powering internet and communication technologies. Another solution is to use human intelligence to actually speed up the AI learning so that they don't expend so much energy. So there you have it, the positive and negative impacts. I've just barely touched on some of the interesting problems, but what I also want to leave you with is a frame in which to think on not just AI but how technology affects society. So this is and why you should be concerned. So this is called a systems diagram, and it basically allows you to study the dynamics of how systems evolve. And here the system is technology in its interactions with environment, people like you and me, and governments. And the basic principle of systems is that they can be stabilized or they can be destabilized, and they are stabilized through these loops. So it's just like a plane which is flying. If it's pushed off course, if there's something which stabilizes it, like a negative feedback loop, that'll stabilize it. So here you see that what's happening is that the interactions are not balanced correctly. So technology is changing at a very, very fast rate. Its impact on environment is going to change at the same rate as the technology changes. As far as that is concerned, it's going to impact individuals also. So like a concrete example would be unwrap this diagram using a story. Okay, so let's say that now we have COVID, and
Hi
we
Hari.
need.
Hi
Yeah.
Hari, sorry for interrupting.
Yeah.
Can we conclude the session a bit fast? Actually, we are quite short on time.
Okay. So all I want to say is that this, because policy is very slow. I'll conclude it now in half a minute. Okay, because policy is very slow compared to the speed at which technology involves. It leads to instability in societies. Okay, and so we need to regulate it, and we need insight in order to regulate it. And I cannot make a presentation without quoting Elon Musk. He basically says the same thing. Okay, so he says things won't go to hell, they'll get unstable or weird, which is exactly what we were talking about. And he also says that technology like AI should be regulated. So I'm going to end my presentation here, and I hope I gave you something to think about. You can follow me on my I blog about all these things on my personal blog, but you can also connect with me on LinkedIn. So thank you so much. That's the end of my presentation.
Okay, Hari. Thanks a lot for this amazing session,
Yeah.
and I hope people got to learn a lot of things. And apologies, guys, for the technical glitches. So we are currently shifting on YouTube only. So I've mentioned the link of the YouTube channel in the comments. So you can just join there. From the next session onwards, we can continue there. And thanks a lot for joining in. Yeah, great. So kindly join on the link in the chat, and we'll be continuing there. Thanks, Hari. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you. It was my pleasure, and I hope it it
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Okay. Bye, guys. Let's meet at YouTube.